And let me go live here. 1 second. All right, we are now live. So welcome everyone, and welcome to like to introduce everybody to my friend Michelle. Michelle Curry. She is we've known I was thinking about it because we've been talking about getting on the conversation, and then like last minute, because the person I was supposed to interview today is sick, and so I was like, this is a perfect opportunity because I just got Michelle's book yesterday. But we've known each other, I think, at least 14 years, probably,
Probably
somewhere.
about that long. Yeah.
So, um, so this is like, it's the evolution of life. Um, so if you want to just take a moment and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Michelle Curry. I'm a project manager and a new author. I just published my own book, Happy Mom Handbook, and did that basically as kind of my creative project, creative outlet. I've always liked to write, and I have been probably planning this book since I was about 12 years old, thinking about bringing more joy into my life and other people's lives. And so Happy Mom Handbook seemed to be the great place to start. So, yeah.
And knowing your two kids, you have done an amazing job. They are two of the funniest kids I've ever met. So
Yeah, they make me laugh
because
every
of you
day.
and
So,
your husband, but uh,
oh, it's good.
yeah. So, because I got the book yesterday, I haven't gotten like too far into it. And, I know I've like read little bits as you were, because, Michelle, is part of my writing group. So, we meet every Friday. So, I've read a little bit, um, and I'm not a mom. So, as I've been reading the book, it's relevant to people, even if they aren't moms. Because even as like a single woman, you're juggling all the balls and trying to get everything
Mhm.
done. You just don't have two other little kids like demanding, or a kid or anything like, demanding something extra, but it's still a lot. So I really like the line about like pursuing happiness ties it to a specific result, which can lead to disappointment. And um, I think that's true of anything and everyone. But like, why did you look at that aspect of it, like the difference between joy and happiness?
Well, to me, joy just goes so much deeper. It's a kind of a way of outlook on life and more of a belief system. Like you can believe that you can be joyful even if bad things are happening in your life, even if things aren't going quite right. It's just kind of a different approach versus trying to tie happiness to like a certain event. Okay, I'm going to go do this and this will make me happy, or I'm going to get this new pair of shoes and it's going to make me happy, where joy is just more of a state of being.
Right. And you also talked about how, like, in the Constitution, it gives us the right to the pursuit of happiness. And I was, so that how I love etymology. So I was like, well, why would our forefathers put, the word happiness into our Constitution, even if it's like the pursuit of it? So I was like, what does happiness actually mean? And, like back in the 1500s, happiness meant good fortune. So we have the right to pursue good fortune. And then like it also means pleasant and contented mental state, which I think like, happiness as we know it today and tied to like these goals, these things that are like far away from us, it doesn't lead to like the pleasant and contented mental state, which that mental state is what brings us good fortune.
Mhm.
So I think that now it's like it's the joy, like
Mhm.
what in every moment brings you joy, like in this exact moment. So I thought that was interesting
Yeah.
because,
Thanks.
why would they put that word in there? Um,
Yeah. So it's important, we're not meant to be miserable beings just trying to do the work that's set out for us, which a lot of times that's how it ends up being because work might take too much of your time. And if there's no work-life balance, then your happiness is affected. So,
yeah. And like you've said, in the book, like, and I always say this to my own mom, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
yeah, I
Uh,
mentioned that phrase a couple times in there. Yeah,
um,
so true.
yeah. So like kind of talk about the struggle because I think, yeah, like watching TV, talking to various friends, like I think moms, especially new moms, like have this expectation that like they should be perfect and everything should run smoothly. And then it's like this disappointment in this, like there must be something wrong if my life isn't doesn't look like that.
Mhm.
So you at the beginning of your book, you talk about like that um kind of rock bottom moment. Um and kind of like what led to that and then what led to you to start to shift out of that and get to the point where you're able to write this book.
So in the introduction, I mentioned that I was working third shift, full time. I was coming home. I would try to sleep a little bit during the day when the kids were at school. And then I was, being mom the rest of the evening as much as possible. And so, it, I just kind of had this aha moment. I was like, I couldn't possibly continue surviving this tired. And, what could I change to make that different? I still would want to bring home the money, but then also make sure my kids were taken care of. And just like with the type of work that I work in at IT, it's really hard to find a position in IT that isn't either overnight or second shift. So I was just kind of doing what I had to at the time to get by to have a job. But I just think that there's a better way to do it. And, so I switched my schedule, and started working during the day only. I just kind of took that off the plate. I'm not doing that anymore. My family was not happy with me at the time. So, yeah, so I just made that change and, started focusing more on things that would make me happy, be a better mother.
And I remember, I think this has been a couple of years already. Um, I think I was over at your house. Maybe we were getting ready to go walk or something like that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, like both you and your husband kind of used your project management skills to kind of like help your kids with homework, with everything, and like kind of keeping track of things. And you talked in the book about like if it wasn't written down, like both at work and at home, with the moments that bring you joy, like they didn't happen or nobody knew. So can you talk about like the system that works for you? And again, like I know in the it may not work for everybody, but I thought it was such a great idea of like how to take that project management skill and use it to help your family.
Right. Well, I guess kind of what we do and what works for us is Stephen kind of has, my husband has his own to-do list, and I kind of keep one separate. And, mine's kind of visible and so is his. And sometimes I'll look over and I'll be like, oh, we're both washing the dog today. Maybe only one of us need to do that, and so we'll kind of scratch things off the other's list if we can. So we use that, and then like kind of just talking back and forth, who's helping the kids with homework, or we've got this appointment coming up, who's taking them. So just planning out our strategy on how we're going to get everything done with the resources that we have.
And how did you come to like to start using that? Because I get the feeling that you probably weren't using that at the very beginning. So like, you know, Like what led you to that shift?
I think it just kind of happened a little naturally. Um, we just kind of both started doing, I would see his to-do list and then we would make kind of jokes and I would write something like, make sure to kiss your wife today or something a little cute, on his list, give him something, cute to do. But then, mine's open too, so he could do the same. So yeah, it just kind of helps us make sure that we are both, I guess, know what we're doing for the day and have a plan. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I was like, that's brilliant. One of the other things that you talked about in your book was like happy boxes.
Mhm.
And I love that. Like you talked about like I think you got your kids when they were old enough to like have a box and put things in the box that made them happy or brought them joy. Um, and I, again, that was like one of those things where it's like, this is something like everybody should do. What are those little
Yeah.
moments that bring you joy? Uh,
Mhm.
so
Yep.
where did the
Um,
inspiration for that come?
the inspiration for that one came from my oldest daughter because she had this little box in her room and we were cleaning her room and I was like, "Oh, what's in here?" And she's like, "No, Mom, don't touch. That's my happy box." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, can you show me?" And she's like, "No, it's private." And so after a while, she did eventually show me. It was like different cute little rocks she'd found, or little dried flowers, or her favorite little tiny figurines and different jewelry like Nana had given her. And so it was a really special treat to get to see what she found as being very important that brought her joy in her life. So,
Wow. Um, did you start keeping one for yourself, or I think you talked about like the journal, the happiness,
yeah.
joy journal.
Yeah, Joy Journal. I just kind of took a journal that we had, and like there was all these different pages that had the kids' scribbles all over it from when they were super young. And I kind of took those out. In hindsight, I kind of wish I kept those because they were so cute. But anyway, I took those out and I just put a big J on the top front of it and started recording all the things that kind of made me happy during the day. So,
Yeah. I know I did something similar, like kind of the concept of the gratitude journal when
mhm.
I was going through my health crisis and I was feeling miserable and like having to change the way that my mind was thinking and processing life. So I started doing like I think in the morning or at least in the evenings, like, writing gratitude things and things that I loved about myself. And I remember a day that I was having a crappy day at work. I was in tears because it was just a stressful day and it was like that pivotal moment of I could go down the dark rabbit hole and think of all the bad things that were in my life. And I paused and I'm like, let me read through what I've been writing. And I remember like after 5 minutes, I was like, life isn't bad. Like look at all the wonderful things. And it was for me, that was such a pivotal moment of like how powerful that daily practice can be. Um,
Mhm.
so I really love the concept of like even just like gratitude or joy, because like sometimes it's hard to like what am I grateful for, but like
Mhm.
looking for those moments that like what brings us joy. So, do you have plans
Yeah,
of creating um a joy journal to as a companion to your book?
I do. I was going to, yeah, I have it in the works and started. I'm just trying to kind of polish it up and make it nice before presenting that out to the world. So yeah.
Yeah, because I think,
Good.
that's it should be like as much as it should be a companion for the book, it should also be
Mhm.
one for like just people in general, because it, especially with, how dark the world can be or feel at times, like to take those moments of, I had joy, I gave my chair to my cat today because he wanted it. So
Yeah.
it's something else. Like, the fact of like, this little boy, this little kitty cat, like who um was almost homeless and is now like demanding to sit in my wonderful chair. I'm gonna have to get a second one. But like those moments,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, and they're so easy to forget.
Yeah. Yep, especially in the heat of the times when something goes wrong and you're like, "Oh, this has ruined my whole day." Well, you could either have it continue to look at it like, "Oh, this has ruined my whole day," when it really could have just ruined like 5 minutes of your day.
Mhm.
So having that to look back on and say, "Oh yeah, well, we had all these great things that happened yesterday. Let's, just let that time pass, that bad time pass, and continue on with better times." So.
Yeah. And another thing that you wrote that I thought was really incredible is when you believe your baby is a blessing rather than a burden, you treat them differently. And again, that's like, yes, it applies to your kids and it's so important, because it's like, if you treat them like a treasure, they're going to grow up and they're going to, be loved and know that they're loved and they're going to know that they're worthy. But it also goes to like coworkers, it goes to friends, it goes to parents, it goes to, everybody. Like if we treat everybody like a blessing, imagine how much different the world would be, if we did that.
Yeah, that would definitely carry it even further than what I mentioned in my book about, treating your baby like a blessing. I just know that I've seen several parents, or even in the store in passing, you'll see parents that obviously don't feel that way about their child, and it's just such a shame because their child is so precious, and in their own eyes, it's sometimes something that some people can't seem to see, and so just having that focus I like that everybody's a blessing, really, even the hard ones, because they're blessing you with lessons in life,
Yeah.
how to deal with stresses. So.
Yes.
uh,
Excuse me. So what's next? Like um, what are your like, because your kids now are one graduate from high school last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And then
Mhm.
your youngest is going to graduate in another year or two.
Mhm. Next year
Um,
already.
wow. So like there's a lot of different ways I would want to take this conversation because I know that there was a lot of stuff that like happened, in 2020 that kind of like took took things differently, like the path that you were going with your kids and their education, and then like where they're going in the future because your kids are like they're very similar, but they're also very different.
Mhm.
And so like, how do you as a mother like help your kids like be unique and follow their path and how do you protect them when, things are happening? Because I know it was like
Mhm.
a really challenging time with your youngest and trying to figure out what was going on and how to help her.
Yeah. So a lot of it, you know, I think my first chapter I mentioned sound advice. Like the best advice is that every child is going to be different, and there's really no book on any of them. And so, you have to kind of learn them and kind of follow. I think it was Maria Montessori that said you got to follow the child and kind of see what they're into and what they're interested in, and then help them down that path. Yeah, I can't turn my daughters, for instance, into a doctor and a lawyer, but I can follow them into what they seem to be interested in and help them figure out new ways to learn that and learn more about that. So,
Yeah.
like my oldest is, she wants to go into engineering. And so she's been studying a lot of courses on calculus and very challenging subjects. And so her academics right now is very challenging. So.
And I know like the oldest is more extroverted and the
Mhm.
youngest is more introverted. So, how have you helped your introverted child like still find a way to connect to others? Because I know that's got to be different. Like, if you're used to your first child being really outgoing and then, seeing your youngest child kind of maybe not excel in that, like, how have you navigated that? Because, I think, there's always the one sibling who is very outgoing and the one or two siblings who aren't, and, um,
Mhm.
helping them through that.
Well, I must say that I kind of identify more with my younger one on the introverted side. So we're kind of like, we'll go into a social setting and afterwards we're like, okay, let's retire to our rooms for a little while. See you later, you know? So we both know that that's a little challenging for us. So we just kind of have made it our little internal thing, internal joke between the two of us. Okay, let's go hide for a while, you know, till we feel more comfortable. So yeah, I think it just being able to really relate on that front to my more introverted child, um, and kind of following her to see what she needs. You know, what friends did she want to hang out with, and how does she choose to spend time with them? Because like a big party for an introverted child might not be the way to go, whereas you know, Brianna was always when she was younger for the bigger parties. So just figuring out what was going to be best for each one of them.
And when they were young and like not able to like give words to
Mhm.
what they loved, like how did you see the difference between, my oldest one is more outgoing and she seems to love this, and the youngest one isn't? Like how do you see that, and how do you like help them at that young age?
Yeah. Well, for my oldest, it was very evident when she was even like 9 months old. She crawled into the middle of like I was in this mom's group and she crawled into the middle of him and was like, "Hey, everybody, look at me, look at me." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, this is definitely an extroverted child." Whereas my younger one, even when she was about that age, it was always like she wanted to be right on me with her thumb in her mouth, you know. Don't notice me. I'm by my mom. I'm okay, you know. So it was definitely very evident right from the beginning, which way each one of them was going to be. So
Interesting. That now makes me wonder. I'm gonna have to ask my mom, like how I was as a baby versus like my sister.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting to find out.
yeah, because I even know like before we moved like from New Jersey down here, I think I think I was more introverted and my sister was more like outgoing. And then there was like a little bit of a switch, or um and I think some of it was, being the new kid, I kind of had to learn how to like reach out and meet people, versus growing up in a place where like, you already know everybody. Um, so, um,
Yeah.
I think like you've had, in our writing groups, we've talked and you have plans of like doing similar handbooks, but like I think this is focused on like the little kids, and then you're planning on so like a series of books like as they get older, and how to help them how to help moms through those challenging times.
Right. So this one was more geared towards younger moms. So I do plan on having, I've got the Joy Journal that we talked about that I want to have come out. And then I have um, planned to do a recipe book and an activities book, and then also for ages on up, like toddlers and beyond. So
Like what's the challenging thing, like because there's different challenges, I'm sure, at like kind of different age ranges, because like you know you've talked multiple times at the beginning of the book of like the crying, it's like
yeah,
they're happy 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 and then all of a sudden like crying.
yeah,
And then like there's, I'm sure, the toddler age where like they're starting to walk and get into everything, and you're having to like you could no longer just put your baby down and they were going to stay there. So like
right.
what have been the challenges, and like as a mom and a like project manager and all that stuff, like how have you navigated, like what were the challenges, what were the good things, what were the lessons learned at kind of like those various stages?
So, um, I'll say the lessons learned is the baby I wrote in from a young mom. I kind of put in the book editing your life's journey to include your children, your life mission, and kind of simplifying your day so that maybe when you're don't have the child, you might have all these different organizations you belong to or different things that are keeping you busy. But then, now you've got to simplify your life and just kind of focus more on being a mom. Um, the toddler years, I think the biggest challenge was just keeping them safe, because they would like fly down the stairs if you would let them. So, so just keeping them safe, like as a toddler, is probably one of the strongest challenges. And then also they have this like defiant phase where like you take them out shopping and they're going to scream and cry just because they're like, look at all this cool stuff that I want and I
Mm.
can't have it all. So, um, elementary school, it kind of depends, I think, what your challenges are going to be as to how people educate their children. Like we did the public elementary school thing, and I think just having them deal with different people with different situations, different backgrounds. How do you deal with the bullies and how do you deal with all this other homework that they want you to do? And um, which I bet, for a homeschool mom, they don't have quite that struggle, I think. Um, the social aspect of the journey through young parenthood. Um, and then on for high school, it's a lot of trying to figure out what do they want to do next. Like high school, they're kind of wrapping up their school age, and then trying to determine what they want to do in their future with colleges. And to me, I think each one is very challenging. It doesn't get like I thought it was going to get easier at high school level. It really didn't. It just changed. Like now the subjects are more challenging, so they come to me with more challenging questions. So,
Like what about even like the challenge of dating and heartbreak?
well, we haven't really dealt with that all that much. Like there has been a little dating, but it was more of like not not heartbreaking. Maybe it was heartbreaking for the guy.
With your oldest now?
But yeah, probably. But yeah, so far it hasn't been too much of the heartbreak. But they are like avid daters. Like, I guess if they were super busy on that front, it would be probably more challenging. But
Do you think the past few years and, COVID and all that, do you think that kind of like created a shift, um, kind of in that social realm of dating? Because, especially for your oldest, like the last couple of years of her high school were kind of COVID, and that
Mhm.
separation. So I wonder like how much of that changed things versus how much of it is their personality.
So it was definitely COVID that switched things because, she had like a boyfriend at her freshman year in high school. And then with COVID, like everybody stopped seeing each other. So they stopped seeing each other. That kind of was the end of that. Um, and then and then they would just been a smaller situation since because we switched over to more of a homeschool setting with just a like a hybrid homeschool group that gets together. So just a lot less social pressure to do it that way, to school that way. Also a lot less work pressure because they were able to shift to being in class 5 days a week and then trying to do a whole bunch of homework afterwards to going to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then doing their homework on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I think
That's
they
nice.
seem to like learn a lot better that way. Plus, it just made for a whole better, relaxed environment for the whole family, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna make 2 points along that because I know one of my old coworkers, like her kids were staying up to like 11, 12 o'clock trying to do homework every night. So like, by the time she could pick them up from their grandparents and then, dance or other, after school activities. So by the time like they were coming home, it was already so late and then still having to do homework. So I really like that idea of like, having, dedicated days to like focus on homework and to really learn what you're actually learning instead of like being sleep deprived. Um,
Mhm.
and then, the other thing that I thought was interesting when I went to your daughter's graduation party, you know, not that like when we were kids, we had our groups that we hung out with, but I just thought it was such a different, um, and I don't know how much of it was Brianna, how much of it was like the COVID times, how much of it was the school, but like they all just seemed to kind of hang out. And it was like, it was both like flirtatious a lot among of all of them, but like no real relationships per se. But it was like intimate in different ways. It was such an interesting thing to like, observe as an adult, that dynamic.
Mhm.
Um, so like, as a parent and kind of knowing, where what you were like at that age and then seeing your kid at that age, like, what like kind of stuck out in your mind?
Just a lot more like this group of her and her peers. They're very much like little adults. They it's not like they've learned enough about some of the things in life, probably with the homeschooling, that they're more like young adults versus old children. So I think in me at that age, I was probably more like an older child, just kind of um, a little rambunctious and didn't have quite as um, well put together, I think, as they are. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I wonder how much of that, because I've talked to other parents. Like I remember when we were kids, we couldn't wait to get our license and
Hmm.
like have that freedom. And kids today seem to like not all of them, but quite a few of them don't seem to be in a hurry to have that freedom.
Hmm.
So like, as a mom of, kids that are, past that age and are at that age, like, um, what do you think is like the driving force behind that? Because this was even like pre-COVID
Yeah.
that like, some of my friends' kids didn't seem to like want their license the way we did.
Yeah. Maybe they just love living with their parents so much.
Could be.
I mean, we're just so great. Why not? Why would you want to leave? No, I think it has to do with maybe a little bit more realization that they're going to get their license someday, or they don't necessarily feel like they have to make that hard breakaway. That it can be more of a softer flow when they feel ready.
Mhm.
At least that's what I've told mine. It's like you don't, like with my youngest, she's almost 17, here in a couple months, and she doesn't want to get her license just yet, but um, and she's okay with that. And I guess that's just and I haven't really pushed it either, so. I figure by the time she's 18, she'll have her license. Like it's not a problem. But maybe we were just a little, I don't know, maybe we did kind of grow up a little younger in that respect, just wanting to kind of get out into the world.
Yeah. Well,
But like I
good.
think the world like right now is a little bit more of a scary place too than it was then because like everything is so expensive, living is so expensive. And then, if you think if I get out now and how are you gonna be able to buy food and everything off of what's minimum wage right now, like 7.25, where we're at. So like that might would buy you a sandwich for that hour you worked. Maybe not after taxes come out. So
Yeah. Um,
uh,
well, and I think it's also true like that, how happy you are at home, I think is also even a driving factor. And not that like I didn't love my parents or anything, but there was more of that like conflict and that like I'm ready to break free of this and have that freedom. And so like, um, I wonder, um, I wonder how many kids, like, if they lived in happier homes when they were our age, did they feel the need to get a license, or was it even just like we thought of it more as a rite of passage? Um, so it was, it's just I think an interesting difference between generations.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah, because like I was already working when I was 15, I was working and I had to walk to work until I got my license. And that was my big driving factor. I was like, I won't have to walk anymore or find a ride. So
yeah,
so like I don't know, we don't tend to have our kids working that young anymore as much as was pretty prevalent then. Seemed like everybody I knew had a job in high school, but
yeah. And I think,
yeah.
I mean, there's goodness to that of like, we're in a better place where like kids don't necessarily need to do that. But I also think like you learn so much, about like how to handle yourself, how to handle conflict and other people, and even how to balance like, work and life and school and all these other things that I think, kids today, like when they go off to college, and they have even more things, and they have to like, they have their dorm rooms, and they have, they maybe have to work at that point to, cover food or whatever. Like, they are going to struggle more because it hasn't been built into their system to like learn how to handle all of that.
Mhm.
Because I think I had my first job when I was 13 or 14. And I think like 14 and 15, I was working two or three jobs. They were little jobs, but, um, you know, kids today,
Yeah.
it's really different. And even like, adults that I know who haven't been, working that long, like there's a difference between, um, when I meet people who like, grew up having more money, they don't, there's just a difference. So it'll be interesting to see how like even, you know, 10, 15 years into, the future, like how is that going to impact how corporates are? What
Mhm.
changes are going to have to happen? Because I know like the millennials seem to like, because I think, their parents, our generation and above, like we've worked so much. I'm sure even with like your kids, like, at a young age, seeing you and Steven work so much, and then like having to do all the home stuff and the kids stuff.
Mhm.
They seem to, they don't want to work that hard. And I think there's like a great thing because there's, and we've talked about this many times on our walks of like how corporations, they're milking people dry.
Mhm.
And when you've got salaries, it sounds great, like if you've got a really good salary, but when you start to look at like the amount of time that you're working, and it's like, oh, I'm maybe making minimum wage,
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
like the 40 hours 40 to 50 hours that good wage is supposed, or that good salary is supposed to cover. But people are working 60 plus hours sometimes.
Mhm.
um
Yep.
and
And then
it's
it really does make that salary a little less appealing when you're working 60 plus hours a week and then so tired you can't really enjoy life anymore outside of work. So yeah, and I think our education system is set up to produce like workaholics.
Mhm.
You go to public school and you have work all day, but here's, oh, by the way, here's all the work you get to do at home too, which is going to take up your entire evening. So yeah, yeah, it's like our system is built to make, and that destroys happiness when you're working all the time, and nobody likes to do one thing all the time. Like you're going to burn people out that way if they don't have time to come home and rejuvenate and do other things that they actually enjoy doing.
Yeah, there's a woman. I took a class with her, like a human design class with her, a few years ago, and she was a physician or doctor, something like that, and had burnt herself out so much in the medical field working, that she ended up having like a medical crisis of her own that, um, took her down, and having to like relearn life again. So it's like it's not just like corporations. I mean, I guess, technically hospitals are their own corporations, but it's like this drive to give give your blood, sweat, and tears. And so how do you like help your kids kind of like have a good work ethic, but not, but have boundaries that we didn't have?
Right. Well, I think like the first step I did was like take them out of the public school system where they were being overworked. And then it wasn't good work either. It wasn't like they were learning something new. It was just busy work that they had to turn in for a grade. So it's not like it was beneficial. Like they have great memories, and most kids do at that age. So they don't need to learn the same thing 5 or 6 times
Mm.
to get it, solidified in their brains. So I think that was kind of the first step is just pulling them out of that environment. And then also, I talk to them about that sometimes too, like maybe you need to take a break or, let's do something different for a while or giving them time too, because um, like my oldest, she's had a couple of jobs, but like school to me is more important than bringing home some money. So I haven't like required them to work doing double duty there with work and school. And thankfully, fortunately we can do that. So I think that's just kind of reinforcing don't be a workaholic like mom was. Kind of frame of mind there. And two, they saw me work myself to death, so they don't want to be like that either.
Yeah. Well, and did you like, because I know it was sometime after your kids were in school, like the last job you had that was like, burning you out, and you made a choice. Like, was it because you were seeing how your kids were doing things differently um in the homeschooling environment that you put them in, and kind of seeing the benefit of being able to step back and not be in that, like, you're at your job of school, and now you're bringing work home and doing your homework, like, was that something that influenced you as well?
Yeah. So at that job that you're talking about, I remember because they had me working like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on conference calls, and then after hours I was on call. And so it was like a 24/7 type job. And I remember we tried to go on vacation to Universal Studios. I remember this trip very clearly because my boss calls me. I'm like, dude, I haven't had any time off in a year and a half. And then the whole vacation, they're like, well, you need to do this. I'm like, I'm off work. I didn't even bring my laptop. Like, you're gonna have to wait 5 days. So just like not being able to get a vacation, I was like, this isn't worth it. So I just realized I was going to kill myself that way, basically, like just run myself into the ground into having a heart attack or something. So thankfully, I didn't have any time to look for another job. But a friend of mine who had found another job came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you come work with me?" And I was like, "Oh, you get paid by the hour. So if I work overtime, I get paid for it. That's nice." So luckily, I didn't have to do really any overtime there. But yeah, so I just changed jobs um, and started doing contract work for project management, different companies that needed a project manager for specific projects. So went down the contractor route for several years, and yeah, just started full time about a little over 6 months ago somewhere. So yeah. But it's
Um,
definitely not the yeah, I won't work that much again, so it's not worth it.
Yeah, even like for myself, having been in that environment of like working all the time, now like it's like when I'm done with my job, you know, I may focus on my business, but it's, it's my thing. It's the thing
Mhm.
that's going to get me where I want to go versus always constantly putting that on the back burner and saying, like, I have to do this first and then I can do my thing. It's like, no, I'm going to focus on what's important to me. And, I also have this job. And that was like
Mhm.
such a mind change for myself. Um, and stepping away from that for a while and being like, no, I don't want to live like that anymore.
Mhm.
So
Yep. Yeah, but it gave me time to write my book there, and it's good.
so what is your biggest advice? Because and I know that take whatever advice speaks to your heart, as you've said in your book. But like, what is your um what is the piece of advice that new mom you wish you had had besides having this book? Like, what is the one thing that you wish like some mom had said to you that would have been like, oh, okay, thank God.
I wish somebody would have convinced me to slow down and enjoy the moment
Mm.
more. Yeah, like to be more in the moment and enjoying the time.
And so how do you like, because that's great advice, but sometimes like when you're like, I've got to work and I've got to do this because I've got to like put food on the table and I like, how would you help somebody, or how would you like current you help younger you um separate from the things that like still need to get done, you still need to work and do these things, but how do you live in the moment?
Um, I think probably one of the most powerful things to me has been like making a list of all the things that I need to do. And just like I kind of put it over there, and when I have time, I'll look at it, and if something's very important, I'll look at it then. But um constantly thinking about, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to do was keeping me from being present in the moment.
Mm,
Um and so having like being able to push my to-do lists aside and be present in the moment has been a game changer, I think. And
yeah,
that's hard to do. It is kind of hard to do when you've got a lot and when you're super busy.
yeah. But that's again, good advice for every person, good advice for entrepreneurs, good advice for, people in corporate of like, what are the important things that like, and again, without it being like, I've got 20 things to do, um,
Hmm.
because there's no way you're going to get 20 things done in any day. But
Hmm.
what are the top three things that like, these three things are going to like move you forward?
Hmm.
What are like the couple other things that would be good to get done? What are the like things at home that need to get done? And like how kind of break those out of um, because it can, as a recovering checklistaholic, I remember like
Hmm.
when things were really bad when I was um, in leadership at IBM, like it got to the point where like my checklist became like I ended up having checklists for my checklists. And that was when I was like, I got a problem.
I
Because
don't think I've been there yet, but
yeah, that was when I'm like, okay, whoa, this is too much.
checklist for the
I no
checklist.
longer
That's
like my
great.
checklists.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and like, I've got the Wise Warrior Journal, which I also wrote during our Friday morning writing groups of like, like what are three things like for my business? What are three chores? What are like three things for my health? So I can, focus on things and sometimes like my chore list, because I hate doing chores, are kind of like generalized of like, I gotta take care of my kitty cats. I've just cleaned something every day. But like that helps me kind of like these are the important things. And then everything else, anything else that gets done beyond that is gravy.
Yep. Absolutely. And then even if I like, so I don't look at my checklist that often, but I'll uh I'll do something else and be like, oh, let me write that down on my checklist just so I can check it off. I got something done today. So yeah.
Um, so for like somebody who like, especially as a project manager, because I'm sure you work with people who um, they don't have the project manager mindset. Because like, um,
Mhm.
I know from like you and some of my other project management friends, they love Excel. Um, and like my brain doesn't work that way. Like that kind of stuff, like, I look at it and my brain goes, nope. I check out.
Yeah.
So like how do you like for a mom who is maybe neurodivergent or like doesn't like the checklist things would make them feel overwhelming. So like if you're working
Mhm.
with, because as a project manager, you're working with lots of different people.
Mhm.
So like how do you help the person who doesn't work that way to still be able to get everything done that they need to get done?
Mhm. Um, so yeah, with some of the people that seem to be that way, that don't seem to work very well off checklists, I'll just give them like, here's the one thing, here's the one thing, let me know when that's finished, or um that seems to help. Here's the one thing that's top on the list. Okay, that's done. Here's the next thing. Just a one at a time kind of thing. Um, some things that might help with that is actually blocking off times on the calendar. So if you say for instance you need a break today, you might block off a couple of hours on your calendar and say these 2 hours I'm doing nothing, or or something, just a little bit of a reminder on the calendar. I like calendar reminders a lot because I will forget to do things if I don't have them. So yeah,
Yeah,
if it's not on the calendar, it won't happen. It's kind of
yeah, that has helped me kind of like be able to step kind of away from like some of the checklists because it's like if it's in my calendar, I'll get the reminder,
Mhm.
and then it'll get done. Um, Now, did when you were a mom, did you go through postpartum depression and like so if there's moms who are kind of in that cycle of postpartum and the depression and the overwhelm from all the hormonal stuff, like what advice would you give somebody in that space other than like obviously getting whatever help they need, but like how would you help them like um again be able to focus on like just get this one thing done or just like do this one thing or like how to help them move forward and
Mhm.
feel like they're like not as overwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah, because I think like I don't think I really suffer from postpartum depression as much, at least not with my first one, but it was like postpartum confusion, like how the heck do I change this diaper? Or why is she crying? Postpartum confusion. Which I guess, that could be the thing is it just learning how to, it just takes time to learn how to do all those things. And then also realizing it's a life change. So I think just you got to give yourself a really big break. And I think a lot of times people don't even realize that they're suffering from like postpartum depression until after they're like, oh, wait, I was depressed and now I'm feeling better, several months later. Because I think when you're in it at the moment, you don't realize sometimes that you're in the, in a depressive state. So I guess, my first step is really awareness. Like, what are you dealing with? If you're not feeling right, is it just confusion or is it depression or is it something, probably talking with someone who, maybe it's a close friend or a specialist therapist that could help with those kind of times just to help identify why are you not feeling the way you think you should be feeling. Um, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that'd be step one is just awareness. Yeah.
And I'm like getting into the part of your book where you're starting to talk about like um, how basically like the old way of being where like it took a village to raise a child, and finding the right people who can help you. Can you talk quickly about that? Because I think that's another important thing, like, whether you're neurodivergent or going through postpartum or just like trying to do it all, like how do you start to like one, even be able to trust other people,
Mhm.
to step in and be able to help you.
Yeah. Um, I think that's a good question because, and I think in my book I wrote that it was all about when you first you have the baby shower and you've got your family that kind of comes in and your best friends and they're all so supportive, and it's kind of that group of people that there's usually a smaller subset that's like super interested in what you're doing and excited about the new baby and will come over and help you. And so that's kind of, I think, where you start. And then also there's people that will be typically you'll know other people or you'll meet other people who are also pregnant at the same time you are. You happen to be in the same baby store, or happen to be, at whatever social event, and you're like, oh, you too, huh? So, so you just kind of meet other moms that way. It's kind of organic, I think. And then too, there's a lot of good organizations for new moms. It used to be called MOPS, Mothers for Preschoolers, but they've renamed to like Mom Co, I think it is. So they're really good. There's like a Moms Club International, and then they usually have different meetings and areas. So finding a local chapter of other moms that kind of get together. And the cool thing about those kind of organizations is that you can also they'll go do events together. So you learn all the new parks in the area and you have somebody to go to them with. Um, and then, yeah, just kind of reaching out and exploring the community with other moms.
Yeah. And I know a few years ago I had a friend who was doing the unschooling. So like,
Mhm.
not even the homeschooling, like the traditional homeschooling, but like really allowing her kid to like what did she want to learn, in any particular day, just playing and helping to develop her mind that way. And I know for her, she found other moms who are unschooling. And so, they would do events together. So like, whatever path as a mom, or as as parents you want to go, like, I think there are like, other groups of people who are in the same kind of have the same mindset, and it's finding those people. I mean, just like, as adults, as like entrepreneurs, you find other entrepreneurs. As spiritual healers,
Mhm.
you find other spiritual healers, and you find those people who are going through similar experiences, and can help you. So I think that's good advice. And um and I talk about like the neurodivergent and the different paths, because like, there's a lot of different, women and parents, and in my group and online. And so like, kind of knowing that they aren't alone,
Mhm.
and to reach out. So if somebody wanted to like, get your book, it's available on Amazon, and I'll share the
Mhm.
link. For other like busy moms, do you have plans for creating an audiobook for it?
I do. I'd like to create an audiobook. So yeah, there'll be more on that. That'll be in that format probably in a couple more months, probably sometime after Christmas, I can imagine. So maybe that'll be in time for Mother's Day. But yeah,
And then if somebody like wanted to reach out and ask you questions, like how can they get in touch with you?
they can get in touch with me through Facebook. It's probably good now. They can send me a message. So happy to help any mom. But I am planning on a group and some other things in the future, but I'll keep you posted.
Awesome. And I'll share all those links in the comments. If you are listening on on YouTube. I'll share like that information will be in the description. Please like and share. Like other moms who are on that new journey, connect them. Get them the Happy Mom Handbook so that we could have more. We could change the future by raising you
Yeah.
know happy babies and being happy parents, and even if you're not a mom, like even reading the book, and there's a lot of like, I think, just general good information on how to be happy. So
Thanks.
so I appreciate you coming on, especially last minute, to do this. And thank you. And again, if anybody has
Yeah.
any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll make sure that Michelle gets them, and responds. So thank you so much.
Thanks. And thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
We need to walk again soon.
Yes.
Right.